Welcome to the show, folks. This is Wrestling Changed My Life. Here we go.
Yeah, I was always a technique junkie. I think it's interesting because I always like to fight a little bit, at the same time. But I think that's what kept me interested in wrestling and still does, is just like the technique aspect and the learning aspect. And
we can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestle, because if you wrestle, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling.
I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
If I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. It's Wrestling Changed My Life. Merry Christmas to you. I don't know if I'll talk to you again before December 25th, and if I don't, hope you have a great holiday season. Our guest today, let's get to the goods. Our guest today is Jason Welch, California legend. In high school, he was a 4-time state finalist, 3-time champ. He took his talents to Northwestern, where he was a multiple-time All-American. And today, he's the head coach at San Francisco State, a Division II program in one of the coolest cities in these United States, San Francisco. I enjoyed this conversation. Jason has a really unique approach to both competition and coaching, and I hope you pick something up from this conversation. Fan of the week goes to Jesus Munoz. That's jesus.munoz.skate on the gram. Appreciate the support, my friend. Stay strong. And if you want to support the podcast, check out our new Chicago flag t-shirt. It's on the online store. It's store.wrestlingchangemylife.com. We've taken the Chicago flag and made a t-shirt out of it. store.wrestlingchangemylife.com. And that's it, folks. Let's get to the goods with Jason Welch. Jason Welch, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are a former Chicago resident, as we were just talking off air. A fan of the Lou Malnati's pizza. In your opinion, does it still take the cake as best pizza that you've had?
It's got to, man. I know I'm a California boy, but man, Chicago, Lou's has my heart,
It's outstanding. It's I get it about twice a month every Friday. Anyone who follows my Instagram knows I'll throw it up there. Still waiting on the sponsor request from Lou Malnati's, but we'll keep plugging. Now, one of the places I wanted to start was, in high school you had a lot of accolades, and I heard that you and your parents, your junior year, you took a Big Ten road show or a tour just with yourselves. How did that all come about, and where'd you guys all go? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so my junior year is when the recruiting started really heating up, and something that I always preach to recruits that are my own or family friends is like, you can do so much work on your own initiatives. You don't have to wait for a coach to call you and X, Y, and Z. So basically, I want to say it was spring break junior year. We took off, my parents, my sister, and I. And we did like a nice Big Ten road trip. We drove to, basically we almost hit most of the Big Ten,
Wow.
From, Minnesota to, I believe we drove through Iowa. We definitely obviously did Northwestern. Michigan was great. And a few other schools. So had a good experience out there. At that point, I knew I wanted to leave the West Coast and go Big Ten. So I was just trying to get a feel for like an initial read about what might fit.
And would you tell the coaches ahead of time, or would you do it incognito?
I told everyone ahead of time for sure. We were trying to, make it, obviously you can't do official visits yet at that point, but make it as official as possible, you know? So got to meet a lot of people and some of the guys. And I mean, I think between that road trip and then summer camps, that summer I went out and did a couple of camps at different colleges that I really liked, and just got a really good feel for those schools and make an informed decision. I think it's one thing when a coach has you for 2 days to put on his game face and, you know, really roll out the carpet, but to see someone over 3 days and then a 7-day, and to see him when he's running his camp, and then to see him, you know, sort of when the mask may be off is important, I think, and really get to know people.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it all since you're a coach now and you were a highly recruited athlete. And so when you got to Northwestern, what kind of presence did Jake Herbert command on the Northwestern team at that time?
Oh, he was amazing, man. It's just straight amazing. And that was a big reason, you know, obviously for the success of the program, and also for me going there. I felt like I had this role model, someone who, you know, had done it and was doing it, and, you know, making his path to be an NCAA champ and an Olympian and a Northwestern graduate, and just a really good, fun, loving person as well, you know. And I think that really fit with what I wanted for myself. You know, where did I want to be in 5 years? And I saw what Jake had and what he had created, and I wanted a piece of that.
Man, he is the man. I love Jake Herbert. Anytime you talk to him, you just get excited. You walk away feeling a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Where did you all look at besides Northwestern? And the reason I'm asking is, you know, you were a 4-time California State finalist, super rare. You could have gone anywhere, and you went to Northwestern, which is a highly acclaimed academic school. But what was that funneling process for you?
Yeah. So, I think we really it came down to, I think there were a lot of places that had maybe really good academics, but the wrestling wasn't as great, you know, or vice versa, or the location was so amazing, but maybe it lacked in one of those areas. And I think that Northwestern was one of the few places where I felt like I could get a stellar location, you know, stellar people, great academics, and great wrestling. Like, it kind of was the whole package. And I knew, and my parents knew, that was my chance to make a jump, you know, like that's like your one negotiation time as an athlete. So I wanted to get the best package possible, you know, and I think Northwestern was definitely that for me. And I was super happy with my choice. You know, Northwestern was obviously my first choice. I had a really great experience at Michigan. I had a lot of, you know, pretty serious talks with ASU, had a coach, Aaron Simpson, that I liked a lot there. And yeah, but I think when it came down to it, I felt the most in sync, and I clicked really well with the guys. That's another thing too, is not just like sort of the on paper stuff, but culturally and just socially, like I fit right in. Like I felt like I was there for 4 days, and I was like, this is home. Like, this is it. And I think there's that in like non-tangible gut feeling that a recruit should get when he feels that this is the right place. Yeah.
Michael McMullen was just on here, and he was talking about that, you know, Northwestern is one of those few pieces where you have all of those components coming together. And, you know, the Big Ten schedule, obviously it's no joke. You were thrown right into it as a freshman. Yeah. What do you remember about that fall semester when you're getting on campus and you're going through the transition of that D1 schedule and the D1 room?
Oh man, it was wild. And I think, speaking back to Jake, is that we had Jake and a few other seniors on the team that I wanted to compete with, you know, and that was a big reason just for me, not so much like logically, just emotionally, wanting to compete right away. Yeah. I just felt like there was this senior heavy class I could contribute to and be a part of. And I think we'd just taken 4th in the country the year before. And so I was just revved up. Like, I want to be part of this group right away. You know, I want to challenge myself. But yeah, the fall was tough. I mean, the winter was tough, even tougher. I remember my dad, you know, consoling me a little bit. Like, I just lost me like the number, you know, 10 guy in the country at a dual meet. And he's like, oh, it's okay, Jason. Like, hey, you're growing, you're learning. Like, maybe next week you'll get, you know, a couple easier matches, get your feet under you again, and keep rolling. And I was like, Dad, next weekend we're flying to Penn State. I got the number 4, and then we're driving to Ohio, and I got number 3 the next day. Like, it just wasn't. It was like no breaks. It was nonstop, and it was definitely a challenging year, to say the least. But I grew a lot, have a lot of great memories, and my goal that year was to be an All-American. I fell short of that, but nonetheless, I felt like I challenged myself, and it was a growing experience.
Now, when you're in that late January, early February, is it the rigor of the competition schedule, or is it the daily grind of practices?
I think our staff did a pretty good job at peaking us in general. I think I think there are so many ways to win from a program macro perspective. And I think at Northwestern, specifically that time, it was, even though we grinded, we worked our asses off for sure, but I think we had a little more of a technical approach, and I think things were a little more balanced, and we did a really good job at peaking. So I feel like the practice grind wasn't so bad, you know? And there were days when they'd kick me out of the room, like, you're overtraining, you know? Like, I think I'm someone who had come in, you know, I'm like always trying to do more. So I did a good job. Like, Jason, you're like freaking out, like, leave practice, like, come back tomorrow, you know? But yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but I think it was the. But
you were known as a guy who had like a vicious high school schedule, right? Wasn't your regiment in high school like 2-a-days, 3-a-days type thing?
Yeah, we did a lot, and I was playing other sports too. Yeah. Like, I was playing soccer in the same season as wrestling, so it was, yeah, the practice schedule wasn't like unknown to me, or, you know, so different. But I think it was the challenge of being away from home for the first time. That Big Ten schedule for sure. Academically, it was a big jump for me. And so I think it wasn't so much like that one like daily thing. It was just the combination of trying to grow as like a complete individual in such like a trial by fire scenario.
Yeah. I mean, you got thrown right to the wolves, and every week and like every other duel, it's looking at the schedules. It's just so tough. And then you get to the Big Tens and the nationals. It's unbelievable. And we're not going to go in chronological order the whole time, but I wanted to follow up with this. When you got to that redshirt year and you were coming back into your sophomore year, a lot of guys have done that. You know, the great John Smith did that. A ton of guys have. You know, what was that experience like to take a step back, you know, from the glass so early in your college career and take a redshirt right away?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was it was just like a well-needed break, you know, because I do think that freshman year being thrown right into it, which is what I signed up for, you know, like, it was hard on me just being away from home and academically more than anything, you know. It's not like I was like failing classes, but it was hard, and I had to learn to be a student, you know. And I think that redshirt year, the most important thing is like I got some role models in the classroom, you know, and I started taking notes, just like I was in the wrestling mat room, you know, who's succeeding here. Like, I'm like, who's getting good grades, and what do we like, how do we do this? Because I think I was like smart enough to get by in high school without doing too much, you know. Like, obviously I worked hard, but it wasn't like school was my life, you know, and I had to learn to really be a student the same way I was an athlete. And so I think that was the biggest thing out of my redshirt year, is having the time to take a little, you know, bit of a deep breath, you know, reset, recharge, and figure out some of the non-wrestling things in my life.
And were you doing a lot of freestyle during that time?
Actually, I was going to go to that, the Sunkiss Open, or I forget what it was. But anyways, the freestyle tournament that ASU used to host. And, I broke my hand. That was the first like open, broke my hand that week. Jake Herbert broke it actually. But it wasn't his fault. It was my fault. But
what happened? Were you guys wrestling, or he like fell on you?
And we were just like going, like, it was like before practice, like we weren't even sparring. We were just like lightly flowing. I went to hit a shuck on him, and my hand caught between my chest and his chest. And I guess that dude has hard bones because my hand just broke. It was like, I was like so confused too. As I started jogging more, I was like, oh, what's wrong with my hand? Like, that's so weird.
He's built like a Greek, just a structure of a man. I mean, it's not fair to the rest of us when you look at someone like that. He's in the same sport.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess long story short, I healed kind of slowly. So I was out for about like 6 or 7 weeks, and then I kind of missed the majority of the open season. And so yeah, I actually didn't really compete my redshirt year, which is odd.
Yeah. Well, I know that you were, I can't remember if Schomburg met and the overtime team, were they still in Chicago at this time, or had he gone to Michigan?
Yeah, that was great. So I think it was just my freshman year. maybe my sophomore year too, but 1 to 2 years where Sean and the rest of the overtime staff were coming in like 2 days a week, so you had the opportunity. It was almost like an outside consulting group, like you had like your base and your meat and potatoes, and then you had this, outside source that would come in and do, small groups or run practice. And I think it's something that was really awesome because it shook things up a lot. I think you speak of that daily grind, like easy way to get out of the monotony is to have a guest coach, And I think walking in the room and seeing Katie like on the treadmill, just grinding out before practice, like, oh, okay, we better be ready today. So that was amazing because we had like a great, base, and then we had overtime coming in, lots of different coaches and Sean and his staff. That was pretty awesome.
I didn't realize they were coming up to the room at that time.
Yeah, we had some kind of, like outsourcing club deal where they essentially were running, our club practices at, our discretion or at the coach's discretion, which was awesome. Because you just had, I feel like, individual mentorship and having more eyes on your athletes is so important, for the programs and places that can afford to have, 5 coaches and then like 5, RTC athletes and 2 guest coaches. It's like everyone's getting individual mentorship and their own feel, and people are going to gravitate towards this coach or that coach, and finding a fit for every person, if you can afford to do so, is pretty awesome. Yeah.
I mean, and you're really seeing that now. You're at the Division II level where you have yourself and you have one assistant, and you guys are wearing a ton of different hats. Whereas at some of the programs you just mentioned, they have, maybe 8 to 10 guys. And so when did you first realize that you wanted to be a college coach?
Pretty late, actually. My plan was to be I didn't know what I wanted to do for a while. And then towards the end of college, I thought I wanted to be a English teacher and coach high school, which, I still think would have been a great career for me. And then after I graduated, I applied to an MA in education and also an MFA in creative writing, which is more towards the teaching college route. And just a little bit on the whim, went the MFA route, thought maybe I'd, be a professor and like coach a little bit, or some kind of form of that. And then kind of one thing led to another, and here I am,
What a sick job though. I mean, to live in San Francisco and be a college coach is pretty incredible.
Yeah. I feel like it's like there's only so many jobs left over here.
Right.
So I feel, especially grateful to be, back in California, in San Francisco, in a great place that I love to live in, and leading a college program. So I'm pretty stoked right now.
It's pretty exciting, man. And is it the Gators or the Crocodiles?
The Gators. The Gators.
All right.
But there's no Gators.
No, I mean, that's the cool thing about California though, is that you have, you don't have some of the mosquitoes that you have in the Midwest. You just incredible weather. And one of the things you've done in addition to your coaching, which is so cool, is you run these camps. It's one of a kind surf camps. Talk a little bit about that and how that came to be.
Yeah. So I think as a recent grad, I was looking at all the different camps out there and thinking about how do I want to stake my claim. And at the time I had a lot of opportunities to do guest clinician places, and some mentors warned me, rightfully so, like, hey, this is great, but this will dry out. Like, unless you're going to keep competing and go win a world title or two, like sort of the name recognition or, the star allure will die out, and they're going to want the next NCAA champ or whatnot. So I thought making my own, business, my own camp name would be the most long-term smart career, idea. So, and there's already so many intensive camps, and that doesn't really match me anyways. And thought about what can I bring to the table. So the first one was the surfing wrestling camp. So basically we spend 7 days in Santa Cruz. We surf half day, wrestle half day, get a beach house or camp out. And it's really fun. And then the second one is over in Lake Tahoe, which is about 3 hours outside San Francisco. It's a nice, giant lake, mountain area, lots of ski slopes and summer fun stuff. So we'll do 2 sessions a day, but we're only about 5 minutes from the beach. So we'll do like 2 wrestling sessions and then 1 like fun session, whether we're hiking or lake time or beach wrestling, or just trying to mix that up. So I feel like that's more my niche, my personality. And there wasn't, at the time, not too many other people doing that either. So
North Shore or South Shore?
South Shore.
Got it.
Yeah.
Lake Tahoe is that's God's country right there. I mean, that whole Northern California area, you have the redwoods, you have Napa, but Lake Tahoe in particular. Wow. I mean, that's so cool that you do camps there. I mean, how many kids will come to something like that?
So the Tahoe camp, we usually have about 60 to 80. And then the surfing camp, we cap out at 10 or 12. Just, I personally don't feel that good about having more than 10 kids in the water at a time. So that's like my max babysitting, duties.
Do they realize how hard it is on the arms and the shoulders and the abs? I mean, do kids get beat up from it?
Dude, it's amazing on day like 6 how tired you are, like as you get into the wrestling practice, like, just crawling like over the mat, like, because when we're also doing like, waking up early, like dawn patrol, like trying to find the right waves. So it's a lot of work, a lot of paddling. Was out this morning, some good waves at Ocean Beach today.
That's awesome that you live that close to it. I've heard on another show, I can't remember the guys who hosted it, a couple Jersey guys, you were on it recently.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll link to it in the show notes, but you were saying there that you lived in Outer Sunset, which people wouldn't even think that's San Francisco if they ever go there. I mean, you're out, it's like an actual neighborhood.
Yeah. It's so funny because I swear I was in an Uber like last year or so, and I asked to be taken to the Outer Sunset, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's so far." Like I was like, "Well, like it's 20." Like it's just funny because it's only 25 minutes. It's on the outskirts of the city next to SF State, but it is, like you said, such a different neighborhood vibe here. Like it's just less traffic, more like a beach scene. A lot of like obviously the ocean's right there. 2 blocks from Ocean Beach, and then like 6 blocks from Golden Gate Park, and then Lake Merced is on the other side in SF State and the zoo. So there's just a lot of like open space, and you don't feel very closed in at all.
Do you ever get out to the Marin Headlands?
I do.
Oh my God. You can tell I loved it out there. I'm just reminiscing on non-wrestling topics here, but that's okay.
Are you moving back? Or
no,
what?
No. I was out there 5 years. Great time out there. I ended up working in tech sales after wrestling, and I worked at Salesforce for a few years. And now I'm back in Chicago. I love Chicago. If my family was out there, maybe, but I like living close to the nest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that.
Is your family, you grew up on the East Bay?
Yeah, so East Bay, Walnut Creek, which is like maybe an hour and a half from where I live now. Just right across the Bay Bridge. And so yeah, it's great. My family's still there. My sister just moved to Alameda, so she's close by. And definitely feel like I have a solid base here to, really dig some roots in.
It's crazy how different just the environments and the weather and everything is out there. I mean, it's such a short span. You could go like 5 miles from the marina to the Outer Sunset. I can't think of 2 different places in the whole world than those 2 neighborhoods. And so, I mean, a lot of people don't think of San Francisco as a wrestling hotbed, but as I said, you grew up in the East Bay. So how did you really get the momentum behind you and really start to pick up traction? Like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to, my club coaches, which was Pleasant Hill Wrestling Club with Corey Solomon and Leroy Rivers and a few other coaches over there. And my dad was big. And then David Christian was a wrestler who went to Cal Poly, was a state champ in California. And we sort of just, formed a little pod. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a cool thing about wrestling is you don't need so much to make it happen. We had a few great coaches, and myself and David, we trained together a lot growing up and pushed each other. And then we weren't afraid to drive, 2 to 3 hours to practice up in Vacaville or wherever, we needed to go, and just kind of hustled, honestly.
Were you always a technique junkie back then, or was it more of like a grindman style when you were in high school?
Yeah, I was always a technique junkie. I think it's interesting because I always like to fight a little bit, at the same time. But I think that's what kept me interested in wrestling, and still does, is just like the technique aspect and the learning aspect. And, like we travel just all over the country, all over the state, going to different clinics and just trying to learn as much as possible, especially because, I had some amazing people who gave me a solid base and know a ton about wrestling, but they never wrestled at the world championships. You know what I mean? So trying to figure out like what is that next step? Like what are these people doing? And going with my coaches and with our parents, you know, to the US Open and studying these guys and thinking about like what are they doing? And we were always really good at consuming a little bit from a tournament or from a clinic and bringing it back home and then teaching it to ourselves and really ingraining it, you know. And that goes to like, yeah, my coaches and my dad and us just like wanting to learn. And it wasn't like we were going to move to some wrestling hotbed. We were like, we're going to do it ourselves and we're going to, you know, just figure it out.
It's so refreshing to hear a family who put a focus on skill development as opposed to like conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one thing I definitely credit my youth coaches for. My dad is, it was always about, we worked it's so hard, but it was always about fun and building a base. And you didn't have to win then, you know, it isn't important. And I don't think I started having that sort of next level. Like I always did like pretty good, but I think like late middle school, I was like, oh wow. Like I think I placed at Fargo for my first time there and realized that like, that was like the next step because I don't know, we didn't compete nationally that much or we spent more time like practicing and training and competing locally.
Now I need you to set the record straight for me here because I couldn't find this. In my mind, I have a memory of you wrestling at the Midlands as a high schooler, but maybe I'm getting it confused with Searchstis. Was that you or him or both of you?
That was, I don't know if Searchstis did because I think
you did though, right?
I did. Yeah. I think they stopped actually after recently after me where they stopped bringing in high schoolers for whatever, you know, probably admin reasons. So yeah, I'd already signed with Northwestern, which was cool. So I got to like, it was like, you know, go see my future teammates and compete. To my high school coach, David Yee, and one of my youth coaches, Leroy Rivers, both competed in the tournament, which was cool too. They got like the old man bids. So yeah, we just had like this really cool experience. And I think they got to do that with me where like, you know, the whole sort of mini team came to Midlands and I placed 6th that year, which was fun. And
stop right there. Hold on, folks. High schooler placing 6th. That's seriously ridiculous. I mean, had you ever wrestled that caliber of guys before you got there? Like any like freestyle opens, like Western regionals, nothing like that?
Well, yeah, I guess a little bit. And I guess I should say that like I was also wrestling like up a division a lot. So in freestyle, we'd go to the tournaments and I'd always be that guy who was like, oh, can I wrestle? Like I'm a cadet, wrestle juniors or juniors wrestling. I wrestle in the open. So I think I remember as a high schooler, I wrestled in the open back when it was like there was like the pre-tournament and then the actual tournament. So I made it through the challenge tournament into like the top 16 or whatever. And then I got barbecued after that. But yeah, so I guess I felt, and also like, I mean, honestly, like at the time, like Los Lomas High School has really developed into more a well-rounded, solid program since then. But my high school team, except for a couple guys, was a lot of first-year wrestlers.
Wow.
So myself and like David Yee, who's my high school coach, would just train every day, which is a big adjustment actually going to college for me was being on a team, like a team where we did team drills and like had this sort of like group mentality because it pretty much had been just like small pods for me growing up where, you know, I'd work out with a coach or one partner and that was just like how we got it done, I guess.
Did he wrestle at Fullerton or Poly?
He was at UC Davis.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the campus with all the bikes, right? They have like a massive bike population at UC Davis.
Oh, yeah. There's always like epic crashes.
So at least you had, I mean, that's a pretty sweet situation though, to have someone close to your weight. You're just drilling with him every day and you guys were just doing your own thing pretty much at practice.
Yeah, pretty much like, you know, obviously warm up, cool down with the guys, condition. And there was, you know, we'd stay after practice and work out, but, you know, and I definitely would work out with some other guys, but I think I spent a majority of my time just wrestling with Dave.
I mean, first year wrestlers, I mean, that nothing but love, obviously, but dude, you're wrestling in the Midlands as a high schooler. I can't even imagine that's even, that's just worlds apart. That might be more apart than the sunset in the marina. I don't know.
Yeah, no, literally like the year I was at Midlands, you know, we had, you know, Sean Doherty was a guy on your team who wrestled at Cal Poly, state placer. And then I want to say there's, you know, essentially we had like 2 state placers on the team, including myself, and then a couple guys who were serious about it. And then a lot of like really great people who were first, second, third year wrestlers on the team.
That's cool though. I mean, you saw it all. And it just shows that you don't have to live at one of these super power prep schools, and nothing against them. I think it's awesome what they're doing too, but it's cool to see you kind of bubble up where, you were doing it on your own, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I think it takes obviously the resources aren't there in your face, but if you're willing to take initiative and be really determined and have a group of little support around you, a couple key individuals, that you can get it done, mostly anywhere.
And I mean, you talk about getting it done. You're someone who strikes a remarkable balance of really enjoying yourself, but also competing at a super, super high level. Is that something that's conscious for you, or just part of like your foundation and kind of your parents?
Mm-hmm. I think both. Yeah. It's hard to say chicken or the egg, because I think that like when I write down like my coaching philosophy now, it's like, okay, was that like a natural thing? Was that from my coaches, or is just like me looking back then on like what I was already doing or thinking? So I think it's hard to say how that developed, but definitely I think just as a kid, just learning to really like love the work was important, and that like doing rope climbs after practice was never a punishment. It was opportunity, and not saying everything was perfect. And I always loved doing extra workouts, or never got burnt out. But, and I think too, just loving competing is important, and that's something I look for in recruits now. Like, just if you find a kid who likes being on the mat, who loves, a full send kind of mentality, like you can transform him into something, like he can compete. And I think that's somewhat innate. I think you can coach that at a youth level, but I think when you get 19 or so, either you are, someone who loves to throw it all down, or maybe you're not. It's hard to change that more than like 5%.
Hard to find those kids too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a secret to recruiting them yet, but
well, you kind of segued into the coaching, and that was something I wanted to talk about anyway, was your philosophy, because, I heard you say that like any coach, when you're coming out the gates, it's easy to look for kids and maybe wrestle like you do. And you had a very unique style. And now you're looking for, like you said, the kid who loves the mat. And so one of the things I wanted to ask is, how would you describe your philosophy, and how has it changed just in the past 2-3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, honestly, one thing that COVID silver lining has afforded me is some time to really reflect on, what do I want as a coach? I'm doing my USA Wrestling Silver Training right now and going through just some sort of like exercises about reflection. And when I first got to SF State, there was like so much to be done and so much to learn, like ad hoc on the fly, that there was no time to reflect. It was just like sprinting every day, figuring out on the go. And even like on the recruiting page, like I wasn't super familiar, honestly, with the local recruits. I was back on more of my national stage and that sort of different tier of athletes. And so, yeah, I think.
So what goes into some of that stuff right away? Just like your first month, what are you doing? Are you calling recruits like crazy? Are you gathering the team? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, just like, I guess it was a little bit of everything, So I obviously had to look for an assistant, and I eventually hired on Ryan Loader, who's been really amazing. He was an All-American at Northern Iowa for Schwab, and local coach. And but so I guess, first of all, hiring a staff, getting to know the guys. Like, I think building trust with an athlete is really difficult to do in 4 weeks. I didn't get hired on until early September either.
Oh, wow.
So I had no time. It wasn't like, hey guys, I'm going to be here and we'll like slowly, like, kind of dive in slowly. Like, season was happening in 6 weeks, and like, no, it was kind of wild. So, I wasn't even sure like which guys were like my better guys, or who I could rely on, or who were my it was just, it was like a sink or swim kind of wild situation.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, did you ever have any of those moments where you're into it and you're thinking, God, I was just at the Big Ten ranks and now I'm at just a small duel here. Was there any of that self-reflection for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've definitely had moments where I miss that, I miss being, coaching, or, if I could coach or wrestle in, like the Big Ten, or, at like a really high level freestyle event, etc. But I think it's important for me, especially as a coach, to check my ego there, and think about like, what do I actually want? Because it's easy for me to fall into that hole of like, almost going back to my athlete mentality where I just want to be the best at any cost, for the most part. And as a coach, like it's a different approach for me. Like I don't necessarily want to do what I did as an athlete, like I want to work extremely hard, but I want to raise a family. I want to, in the future, I want to like have a different balance. I want to live in a certain location. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more that goes into that picture as a coach now.
How do you track progress as a coach when as an athlete, it was so easy just to how, if you're getting your workouts in, but like as a coach, it's a little more abstract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something that I've been thinking about, like, obviously, like, oh, I had X number of All-Americans, or, this is our GPA. I've been thinking more about recently, like a little bit selfishly, like, what do I want as a coach from this experience? And how do I recruit more guys that will bring that more to the table? And how do I develop people who bring it more to the table, because I realized that, like I want to win, but I want to win in a certain way and have a certain experience, I
love how you even said
I want kids who want to be here,
Well, and you said like you want to be around kids who you actually want to hang out with because you're going to be around them so much as a coach,
Yeah, that's why I tell recruits, I'm like, listen, like this sounds maybe bad, but like if I don't mess with a kid or like them, then I probably won't recruit them,
Right.
And I mean, obviously there's a certain amount of like, maybe if they're like so good, but yeah, like I have to spend so much of my time with these kids. And so it's not just like, how do I like develop them, but also like, how do they give back to me? Every practice I give so much energy, like who gives me back energy?
Mm-hmm.
Are they just consumers of that energy, or do they consume and give back? And I realized, the kind of athlete I want is someone who will work really hard with a smile on their face, who's passionate and, who wants to compete, who wants to be at SF State and will fit our vibe and our culture and our mentality. And I'm realizing that thinking more about the macro approach and the long-term goals here versus like, I got to win right away. And thinking about like, well, where are we going to be in 4 years and how do we do that?
Yeah. I mean, it can go by fast. And is this your 4th year right now?
Yeah, I guess this is third year, or 4th. Yeah, I guess it's 4th. I don't even know.
Now that
it's gone by really fast. It's a blur.
But now you're there though, and you've done it a couple of times. How far out are you planning practices and workouts for your guys once you get into the thick of the season?
Yeah. So the thing that I feel like I have a good gut instinct on how to peak guys in the middle of the season. And the thing that I've really been reflecting on and working on, one of the projects in COVID, is like just our preseason. Because I think that's a little bit more regimented and instills some basics, especially in our freshman class. And I think one thing I realized about some of our recruits is that maybe a little more green than the Northwestern people that I knew. There were some, kids who had 4.0s in high school, and, it's just like such like almost like adult-like freshmen, and
so
some of my kids need a little more. Yeah. Some of my kids need a little more TLC when it comes to like, hey, here's like your course planner. Here's how you figure out like how to organize your life, and some of those more like holistic leadership development, class study development stuff. And so building that into our preseason is important, again, division, like where I am wearing lots of hats, I think one thing I saw with the recent freshman class a couple years ago is that I don't think they left campus enough. Like I want them to know they're in San Francisco. I'm not saying they have to like go out and stuff, but they should know that the park is here and there's this beautiful area to go explore, that the Marin Headlands are there to go camp. And I want them to have that experience. So starting to plan in, I think like every other week we'll get off campus for like a 10-week period, or maybe just every weekend go do the Golden Gate Run, do Twin Peaks, do the Outer Sunset Beach, and sort of forcibly get them to see different parts of the city and they have those experiences, albeit through conditioning.
Now, are most of the kids who are on your team, I assume most are Californians, but are most North Bay, north side of the state kids?
I think we actually have quite a few from Southern California. It's probably split, I would say, a handful, a few out of state kids. And then maybe about half is from Southern California, some LA, Orange County, and then a handful of Bay Area, Northern California.
California is such a gold mine. I mean, you could literally get a team of everyone who got 5th at the California States and make a national championship team easy.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's, I mean, something that, like what you just mentioned, I've especially realized lately, just per our scholarship resources and in-state tuition, and realizing, exactly where we stand, that I think if we can get a lot of those kids who maybe didn't start wrestling until they were later in their life, or still have some kind of peaking and ceiling and really love the sport and are willing to commit to me and develop under my program, that I think we have a ton of success here, and it doesn't need, I mean, obviously I would love to get a state champ in the room, but we don't have to get a state champ to make them into an All-American, like I trust in how I can develop an athlete. And I think getting the right character attributes and solid baseline skills, I can work with that and develop, and there are so many kids here who are overlooked, and there's just so much depth that there are plenty of kids who are, top 8, top 16 that are stellar.
Well, and SF State's won before. It's not like there's never been a national championship. Mm-hmm. Hasn't the wrestling won before the title?
Yeah, I think 87, 90, no, 97.
Respect.
87. But anyways, we won it. It's happened.
Before this podcast, before a lot of people are listening to it, Richard Mendelson, respected Dr. Richard Mendelson, he's a PhD, lives in Florida. He wrestled on that team. And we just met. He's a good friend now, but I had to give a shout out to him, because a lot of people, again, they may not know that. You think Division II, you think UNO, you think some of those more traditional powers, but we got to give love to the West Coast schools, especially what's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And that's one thing is I'm, actively thinking about, especially now during my reflection period, is like, how do we get to that team title standpoint? Like even just breaking down little things like, okay, how many All-Americans do we need to do that? And how do we peak a team at the right time for that? And how do we recruit a team that, obviously you have to have a certain things come together to make a title run. So really looking at how do I develop a kid from a 5th place at California State as an 18-year-old into a 22-year-old Division II national champion.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and it could obviously, it's happened before and it'll happen again. I mean, programs have done that. I mean, Portland State in the early 90s, they ran off 3 or 4 in a row, and they only took 5 guys, and they had all 5 win it though. So it was like, it was pretty ridiculous. But I mean, that West Coast talent pool is so deep. But one of the things I want to ask you about is, you coached at a high school in Illinois. I'm an Illinois guy. I'm partial to the Illinois State tournament. Give me your thoughts on Illinois 3A versus the California tournament.
Oh,
was Lane Tech 3A?
Hard to say. Well, I was at Loyola Academy. Actually.
Loyola Academy. Okay. Were they 3A?
Mm-hmm. So we were, but we didn't qualify anyone to state when I was there.
Okay.
So I don't know how familiar I was with the state tournament.
That's a nice area up there. Those kids don't have to. They're not grinding out in wrestling, man. They're smart. They're deploying their efforts otherwhere. I didn't realize that. Okay. I mean, California has that one division state tournament. I mean, you've been through it, but I always just like to get people's takes on the different state tournaments.
Yeah, no, I definitely, we're obviously looking at, I think it's just, they're both awesome and deep, it's like, you look at, Illinois, California, Jersey, and a few others. And it's like, damn, some of these kids are like, again, top 8 or top 16, and they're can develop. And if you find the right fit, those kids can be All-Americans at any level. Like there's just so much depth, and it's tough.
Now, do you guys do a lot of recruiting from the California JUCO circuit?
That's something that I would say we're just starting to really delve into that.
That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
And yeah, it's so interesting. And so I guess for the viewers who don't know, the California JCs compete in their own league, right? So the national JCs have their national championship, and then the California JCs have their own. And that stems back to a time that, unfortunately, or I guess that it isn't this way anymore, but there's still a lot, but so many JCs in California that had wrestling, and Division II as well. Going back, like you said, our history, like Chico, like I looked at like in the 80s, like a Division II All-Americans, and it was like insane. Like there were so many Division II Cal State programs that were just killing it. But anyways, we are starting to take a kind of a deeper dive at the California JC kids. And I had a really, really great experience with a couple kids who just walked on from that system. And, taking back to, again, like who's giving me energy and positivity and growth. And I think there's a lot of sort of overlooked kids in that.
Oh, it's
section.
crazy. And I mentioned this before, but I wrestled at Cal Baptist for one semester. I was terrible and I got homesick and I moved back. But I got to meet a lot of Californians who I'm still friends with to this day. I've never met more kids who wrestle their freshman year only onward, and they're amazing. And they're just incredible talents that are out there. And all of them had come from this California JC circuit. And I was like 20 years old. I've been around wrestling my whole life and never even heard of this before. And I'm like, wait, it runs in the fall with the football season. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah. It's like an early season. Like it's so quirky like that.
Bizarro, but it's loaded with talent though. I mean, I got to think a lot of those California JUCO state champs would be right up there in the top 4, top 5 at the NJCs.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely, I think is true. And I mean, obviously one thing that we really have going for us is like SF is a great location, and typically California kids who stay around local are staying local for a reason, you know, and want to continue to stay local. So it's definitely somewhere we're keen on.
It's just such a cool state. And, you know, like you said, if someone's already stayed for junior college, it would make sense that they're going to stay a little bit longer. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you know, going forward, if you look at a city like San Francisco, there's, you know, 1 million, 2 million people there. I don't know how much wrestling there is in the actual inner city of San Francisco. Like, do you ever think about like the impact you guys could have with like a Beat the Street San Francisco and getting like 10, 20, 30,000 kids in the city wrestling? I mean, there's not much going on right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there?
No, there's
Which is crazy.
There's not,
so many kids.
Yeah. It's like, and I think it's a bit of a like, there definitely is like the population in SF tends to be more of an older population, but there are a ton of kids here still, you know? And yeah, I think that's, again, looking at like the bigger picture stuff, like what's a development project that I could be involved with in, you know, in 5 years. And so, and I think growing wrestling locally here would be pretty awesome. And there is a ton of kids. There's not much wrestling in the city right now. There's some, but it's not what it could be. And I think, looking at SF and Oakland, and I think those are like, I'm trying to think what other areas, you know, like locally. And I think some like up north too, but I think there are some pockets of sort of like underserved wrestling wise, you know, populations that could really be grown and contribute to our national talent, our international talent, you know, and our obviously SF state talent too.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You got your own problems to deal with, but you know, in running a team, but I just think someone like you, I get so excited to see a young guy who loves the sport in a position where you can impact a whole city, and there's just a lot of room to grow out there. So overall, I'm just trying to say I'm excited you're out there, man. And I'm looking forward to the future, because you look at some of the greats that have come from that, you know, even San Jose's a little bit down there, but you got Eric Guerrero, Stephen Abbas. I mean, some of the greats of all time from that Northern California area. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's been a lot of quality athletes and mentors for me to look up to. And, you know, it's a great wrestling area. I think we have a lot of like sort of quality to grab onto, you know, in Northern California. And I'm excited to see like at some point us sort of develop more of a base for the quantity, you know, and, you know, Bay Area Beat the Streets has been doing some more work and growing lately, which is really exciting, you know, and just some redevelopment about their goals. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, how they develop and what they can bring to the table, and then B, like, how can I contribute as well? You know, I know looking at the New York guys and what they've done and talking to Jeff Marsh and, you know, I think one of the first things they did is create a few like satellite, like kind of clubs. And I think SF could be a great place to host that in the future. And we want to get involved.
Well, I'm excited to see what you guys do out there and really appreciate your time, man. Thanks for coming on, Jason.
Yep. Thanks, Ryan.
And all great things must come to an end. If you want to hear more from the podcast, text Wrestle to 555-888. That's Wrestle to 555-888. You can also find us on Instagram, Wrestling Changed My Life, Twitter, Ryan_N_Warner, as well as our website, WrestlingChangedMyLife.com. Take care, y'all. 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 Take care.